Ex-homeless redditors, what was the scariest thing that you ever saw on the streets? NSFW. All sorts of the usual shitty. Dicey situations with dicey people. But the one where I was spine-chilling terrified. I had found a seemingly nice quiet cut in the woods. Shade. Private. I'm set. I wake up to a most guttural yowl at 2 a.m. A pack of feral cats that the adjacent 50-year-old Rain Man had lured to his property with cans of wet food. They stood on the fence yowling. Eyes reflecting as we stared the other down. I was homeless in Hawaii for a month after I got out of the army. Nothing I saw was ever like Hoshti Imadai. But there are a lot of homeless meth heads wandering the streets. I watched people having arguments with a spoon they were holding. People eating sand at the beach. People wearing weak old shitty-caked pants. Meth is f***ing wild. Stick to weed and shrooms. Not scary but disturbing. Was walking trying to get to downtown for reason at night. Possibly shelter when this guy started to walk beside me. He followed me for 3 miles while playing with his dick beside me. Even when I made it downtown he still followed me and thought he was going to corner me and probably try and pay me. But he didn't notice I was walking us to a nearby building that had security until I yelled for help. He ran off immediately afterwards. I think everyone on this thread would appreciate Invisible People on YouTube. He interviews homeless people and you'd be shocked how homelessness really happens to regular people. I remember seeing 3 guys just basically playing with this poor girl a few years younger than me, 18 at the time, trying to see what she'd do for drugs. She was homeless too and very uninterested in them or the drugs. It wasn't scary like spooky or something. It was just that humans will resort to this insane base level of craziness. I did step in and they backed off, but that was one time I was able to step in as opposed to the many I wasn't. Biggest thing, 5'3" 115 lb, was how often people try to abduct you. That and how often people try to serve you tampered food. Everyone is gonna try to steal from your ass, so watch your shitty. Keep your mouth shut and find a good place that is desolated from nocturnal animals and assholes. There is a drainage ditch in my area that the local homeless people tend to bed down in. A few years ago, when I found myself destitute, I spent one night down there. That night I witnessed a Molotov get thrown into another dude's spot, which led to a huge fire that ran rampant through the area. Yeah. I bought a tent the next day and started camping in the local mountains. In my years being a homeless junkie and then cleaning up kinda and working at a homeless shelter on the street, I saw a dude try to murder his girlfriend with a machete. Like full on swing and barely miss, and my heart was f***ing pounding like I was sure I was about to witness a murder. I also saw countless ODs and shitty. Saw a girl beating to shitty who had just been up-ed asking for help. Saw a dude get stabbed. Saw a big huge dude have a heart attack and die and the paramedics frantically trying to give him chest compressions and shitty and he was just flopping around. Saw a lot of shitty honestly, but those were the ones that come to mind as scaring the shitty out of me the most. When I'd get ready to sleep I'd roll my windows up on some sheets to block out everything except part of the driver's side window so I could see out just a bit and have a view of my side mirror. I had a dog. And while he was small, he was also mighty. And a very good boy. I'd sleep on my side in the backseat and he'd sleep in the nook of my arm. One night he started growling and it woke me up. As soon as I opened my eyes I was looking directly into the eyes of someone else standing outside my car while they peered through the crack in the sheets. I asked, "What do you want?" And he bolted. While homeless, before I joined the military, I was sleeping in either an abandoned factory or in my car at the time. While sleeping in the factory I witnessed someone cracked out of their mind arguing with someone else cracked out of their mind arguing over who was going to take the last of the heroin that they had. I watched as someone slit their wrists with a needle covering themselves and their own blood, saying that they were the sacrificial lamb and deserved to get the last hit. Group of kids hitting sleeping homeless people with rocks tied to sticks. Seattle 5 years or so ago. They killed a few. I didn't sleep for days. And I still hear the sound. Neighbors caught a homeless dude shooting seagulls out of the sky and hanging them on a clothesline. Call gaming warden. Shows up to arrest dude when confirmed. Dude says only means of feeding his family. Warden realizes true and not just doing for sport. Lets him off with warning with promise to never do again, as seagulls are a protected animal in these parts. When leaving he asks with curiosity what a seagull tastes like. Dude says tastes like mix between spotted owl and California condor. Dude jerking off in the night bus. Bedbugs from a shelter I stayed in for a few nights. I ended up hospitalized. I was once homeless for 4-5 days a few years back when I got lost in another city in Turkey where my family lost me. I had to go to homeless shelter since I didn't have my bag, had my phone, money, card, keys, ID, important stuff, and it was when the Turkish coup happened. I saw people being beaten and sometimes to death. Gunfire, bombs, gas. I didn't have anyone to help since the police were busy. Everyone was busy. The scariest moment was when a military officer threw a few Molotov cocktails at the crowd. My cousins found me near the mosque they visited at midnight. I was sleeping behind a closed shop on a bench. I am fine and doing well, thank God. A friend of mine who was battling with addiction and living on the streets in Dallas, TX, told me he bought drugs in an abandoned home once and the guys there were holding a 14-year-old girl hostage, tied to a bed, and were selling her to people. I hope they got what they deserved. I watched a pregnant woman smoking crack at an abandoned house I had to rescue some family from once upon a nightmare. But quite frankly, after reading these comments, I wasn't really homeless. Booty had to live in my car on and off for a couple months. In a mountain town due to scarcity of work available at the time. Woke up in the middle of the night to a black bear that was curious trying to get in. I wasn't really homeless. Booty had to live in my car on and off for a couple months. But isn't that what being homeless is? It's a long story but not that interesting, but long story short, I grew up in a very sheltered home. Through a series of unfortunate events, I became homeless. For someone who didn't know anything about the world. Seeing people use drugs openly, eat garbage, cry themselves to sleep on a park bench, kill themselves. Was homeless for a summer and an acquaintance through the party scene of the town invited me to crash on her couch. Woke up in the middle of the night to her screaming into her phone about how they are out to get her and are setting the world up for destruction. Pretended like I was still asleep and got out of there the next day real quick. I saw a really angry bald man aggressively masturbating his flaccid dick. TBH, that was probably the most scary thing. I wonder if he was angry because it was flaccid. People who had been homeless way longer than me. Trust me. There is nothing scarier on the streets than the meth couple who this has been their day in and day out for thousands of days. People joke about meth. But unless you've been around chronic users, you don't understand how truly scary it makes people become. Like a whole new level of animalistic. Impulsive. Not right in the head people. I f***ing hate meth. Snow. I'm a big, scary dude, so I never had trouble with people picking on me or whatever. In that sense the streets were safe to me. But seeing snow for the first time that year just made me cry and panic. It was too early for snow. I wasn't ready for that type of cold and was hoping to be on my feet again before the winter came. Beautiful thing like snow just f***ed me up in so many ways. I was just sleeping around where other guys in my city sleep. Then just see some teens stabbing one of the homeless guys multiple times. Ran away from there. Never turned back. Kids beating the shit out of a homeless man. Started with them spitting on him. He gets up and runs after them. Then a couple of them hit him from behind with some IKEA looking wood. You know, the one that snaps easy. He gets mad and they run off. He comes back to the bench and falls asleep again. 10 minutes later they're back and they just start beating the f***ing shit out of him. I had to jump in and stop them. A woman giving birth at a bus terminal. The scariest thing I saw was a man named Tony T. Apparently he had been a cokehead for years but had to keep a job to support his habit. He had received a huge settlement. Over $500K. At which point he decided that he never had to work again. He lived on the streets and smoked cocaine all day. The best way to describe him is Tuco from Breaking Bad. He was generous with his drugs so people would naturally want to be around him. But he was unpredictable and dangerous. I have tons of stories about him being crazy aggressive, but the last time I saw him he beat a man with a pipe for dropping a tiny crack rock in the dirt. We are talking like $20 worth of dope, and he probably either killed the guy or FK'd him up for life. I tried to stop him and he threatened to turn on me. I walked out. Went to her phone and called my sister to come get me. She helped me get my shit together and I never went back. That was 30 years ago. In my car at a gym parking lot. Heard a scream so blood-curdling at 2 AM that I was equally scared and worried for the person. It went on for a minute and I looked out and saw a car driving slowly by the business front that it seemed to be coming from. I called the cops because if someone was in that much pain, it must be a mixture of overdosing on meth, crack or stimulants and being hurt. Or just a prank by kids. Not on the streets but behind some garages in the apartment complexes where I had a place. What felt scary to me was the realization that I didn't have a place to go. Usually after a long day you can kick back and relax at home. The dread of knowing I still had to find a safe place to sleep where I wouldn't be found was such a daunting task at the time.